Good morning, folks, and happy homecoming. Welcome. I hope you can find some seats if you'd like, or gather as you will. Welcome to the dedication of an important historical marker, the newly minted and installed Theta Chi plaque. What a beautiful day to gather and welcome many Theta Chi alumni home as campus is full of life. My name is Hannah Maher, and it's my privilege to serve as Vice President for Development and College Relations here at Monmouth. I was approached a few months back by alumnus in 1974 grad John Carlson. John shared a vision he had to place a permanent marker here at our Champion Miller Center, which once served so many as the Theta Chi fraternity house. John reached out to many brothers and found that there was great interest and support for such a project. I was pleased to hear from many of you with your letters, emails, and phone calls, sharing your desires to see a permanent plaque recognizing an important fraternity in Monmouth's history. And I was even more pleased to oblige to the request, working with John Carlson and another Theta Chi brother, Jim Braun, to see the concept come to fruition. I want to be sure to leave time for another important speaker, but I'm hoping I can share a couple things with you, and you see if you remember these things from your time here at the Theta Chi house. One highlight of life in the house each year was the annual Big Brother, Little Brother banquet, where a paddle was exchanged between the new pledge and his big brother. In the spring of 1963, the college started the tradition of Scott Olympics, an activity of student competition events. Throughout the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, the Theta Chi house had numerous teams participating in these events each year. During the 1970s spring pledge class Hell Week, the Theta Chi was branded into the mantle over the fireplace, which is still there today.
What year was that?
1970.
That's right. Just checking.
1972 was the Monmouth College football team's championship season. They're being honored this weekend as well, with 22 active Theta Chi members and 3 social members on the team. The three team co-captains were all Theta Chi active members. 1982, the chapter was awarded the Theta Chi National Lewis Award. During the time of Beta Kappa and then into Theta Chi, the house was known for providing entertainment to the campus and the place to be on the weekend. For many years in the 1970s, the Singing Farmer would perform on the Saturday night at the house to a large crowd. During the 1990s, the chapter was closed, leaving a strong legacy of campus leadership, academic, and athletic excellence. Theta Chi alumni have continued to serve the college as members of the Board of Trustees, Alumni Board, reunion committees, and many other types of participation. Chapter alumni continue to return to campus and with pride and fond memories view the house at 727 East Broadway. Just installed this week, this marker will stand to share so much of the history of this building and its importance to Monmouth College. John coordinated with Monmouth's editor and historian Jeff Rankin to develop and write the language on the plaque. I'd like to now ask Jeff Rankin to share a few words on the rich history of Theta Chi.
Thank you, Hannah, and welcome everybody. It's my pleasure to welcome you back to Monmouth College, and as a college historian to offer a brief recounting of the history of this impressive structure. The story begins exactly a century ago when in 1922, the Monmouth College Senate relented to increasing pressure by alumni and students to allow fraternities back on campus after having banned them in 1874. So at last, Xi Gamma Delta, a local fraternity founded in 1914, was able to come out of the closet and have a presence on campus. 4 years later, in 1926, Xi Gamma Delta became the Pi chapter of the national fraternity Beta Kappa, the first Monmouth fraternity to resume a national affiliation after the ban. Beta Kappa immediately established headquarters in a rented house at 309 East Broadway, which is down the street a ways. But being the most popular fraternity on campus, it began dreaming big. After all, these were the roaring 20s and cash was flowing freely. So just 3 years after gaining its charter, the Pi chapter of Beta Kappa in 1929 petitioned Monmouth College to construct a modern fraternity house across from the college campus. It was a plea the college would take seriously because it was backed with cash. Using a plan similar to one employed at Northwestern University, the chapter made a down payment to the college, which acted as a banker, issuing a loan to the fraternity that would be paid off over the next few years at a rate of 6% interest. Once that loan was paid off, the college became owner of the property and leased the house to the fraternity. At a deadline banquet, a goal had been set for raising the down payment, but that proved unnecessary, for at the banquet, 2 large pledges were announced. One came from C.C. Woodward, a owner of a local decorating company whose son was a member of Beta Kappa. The other came from a professor who would later become famous for advancing personal loans to chemistry graduates so they could attain their PhDs. It was none other than Professor William S. Haldeman, the chapter's faculty advisor, who was a lifelong bachelor and lived a Spartan life, owning neither a house nor a car. The Galesburg architecture firm of Aldrich and Aldrich, which had designed fraternity houses for the University of Illinois, was secured to draw up the plans. The design was for a southern colonial house with 4 massive white pillars contrasting with a red brick edifice, a large terrace and a balcony, and a Spanish tile roof. Well, bad weather in early 1929 delayed raising a house that stood on this site, so it wasn't until March that a foundation could be laid by A.C. Phillipson, a local contractor. The basement would feature a concrete floor and contain a chapter room, dining room, kitchen, boiler room, fuel room, pledge room, wash room, and storage rooms. The first story would have beautiful terrazzo flooring beneath the library, living room, hall, and office, and oak floors in the house mother's quarters, guest room, cloakroom, and telephone room. At the end of the living room would be a large fireplace. The second floor would have 8 large study rooms, each with a spacious closet, wash and shower rooms, a hospital room, and a telephone room. The third floor housed the large dormitory, an alumni room, a study room, and a trunk room. Construction continued at a fast pace throughout the summer, so when school convened that fall of 1929, the brothers of Beta Kappa were able to move in immediately. By early November, outfitting of the house was complete and an open house was held during which 400 guests were entertained. Visitors were impressed by a speaking tube system which ran to all floors, a laundry chute, cushions, lamps, and other accessories that were purchased by members of the Mothers Club. That included guest linens embroidered with BK, but not just guest linens. The monogram was embroidered on every bit of house linen, down to the dish towels and dishcloths. In the basement, visitors saw the heating plant, which featured a modern oil-burning steam heat system. Well, having ample funds to maintain the impressive building was a concern, so the fraternity proposed requiring each member on initiation to sign a $100 note, payable within 10 years after graduation. But that was deemed impractical, so they raised funds instead to create an operating fund. Despite the Great Depression, the red brick mansion on the hill continued to draw big classes of initiates, but that would soon change. My dad, who was initiated into Beta Kappa in 1939, told me about the Sunday afternoon in December 1941 when he was washing dishes in the kitchen after lunch. One of the brothers rushed in and announced that Pearl Harbor had been attacked. Within weeks, seniors in the fraternity would begin making plans to enlist in the armed services, while sophomores and juniors began looking into programs of accelerated study in order to graduate early. When it was announced in April 1942 that Beta Kappa had merged with Theta Chi, the more than 60 members of the former fraternity had dwindled considerably. In December of '42, it was announced that the U.S. Navy pre-flight cadets would arrive on campus within 3 weeks, and the fraternity houses had to be cleared out. And this was right in the middle of, right before winter finals, snowing, and they had to make room for the women students who would be displaced from the dorms. So in the snow, the remaining members of Theta Chi helped move the girls in using sleds as transportation. Despite being evicted, however, Theta Chi remarkably remained active throughout the war, the only Monmouth fraternity to do so. Thanks to the leadership of Leroy King and Bob Meneely, who just passed away, they were able to have a modified form of Rush Week and even a formal, which was held at Holt House. Due to wartime shortages, there were not enough pledge pins for new initiates, so Theta Chi sweethearts came to the rescue. The Theta Chi pins were disconnected from their sorority pins and loaned to the boys. After the war, Theta Chi moved back into a newly decorated house in 1946 with a fervor. A pledged class of 24 that first semester brought the active membership up to 62. Over the next 4 decades, Theta Chi turned out a succession of campus leaders who would also go on to notable careers. It also became particularly noted for its athletic prowess, sending several of its brothers to the M Club Hall of Fame. Many members of the undefeated 72 football team who are being honored this weekend remain proud members of Theta Chi. In the 1960s, plans to build a new fraternity complex for Theta Chi and ATO thankfully did not materialize. So this house, built solid as a rock, continued to serve as the beloved Theta Chi home. Sadly, though, after a series of unfortunate incidents in the late 1980s, the house was closed when Theta Chi lost its charter in 1990. Since that fateful year, the house has had a colorful history, to say the least. The next occupants were a group of Anglican monks from the Franciscan Order of the Divine Compassion. They left one visible remnant of the residency, an ornately carved panel on the inside of the front door. That and the Theta Chi brand, I guess, are the two lasting legacies. The college's building initiatives of the 1990s brought a series of new tenants to the house, including the Department of English, while the former ATO house was being renovated for their new quarters, and the Office of Communications, while Carnegie Library was being renovated into Polling Hall. My own office was located in the southwest bedroom of the second floor here. It was an interesting time as my boss, the vice president for development, lived in the building while he was looking to buy a house. And there were times when I was working weekends, I would run into him in the hall wearing a bathrobe. In more recent years, the house has been home to intercultural life, and just this spring it received an expanded role and a new name when it was christened the Champion Miller Center for Student Equity, Inclusion, and Community, named in honor of an emancipated slave who became a respected Monmouth citizen after being taught to read and write by a student at the Monmouth Seminary. It is our purpose today, however, not to dwell on the recent history of this grand old house, but to dedicate a historical marker that pays tribute to the hundreds of brothers of both Beta Kappa and Theta Chi who called it home for 6 decades and who continue to hold it dear to their hearts. Thank you.
Thank you all. We thank you for joining us this morning for this dedication ceremony. And again, we're pleased to see so many Theta Chi brothers return for this year's homecoming celebration. Please be sure to go to the library and check out the display there of numerous Theta Chi items pulled from the archives set up just for your return this weekend. Again, we share our deep appreciation to John Carlson and Jim Braun and the numerous brothers who've supported this project. I encourage you to try to find an opportunity to get your photo with the plaque as another lasting reminder. Please join us on the north end of campus as we continue our homecoming festivities and the football game as we compete against Lawrence University. Again, thank you for coming, and please have a good rest of your homecoming.